Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are filming the final book haul of 2025. It's the end of the year, which makes me a little anxious, but books make me less anxious. So I have um a little over 20 books to talk about. I was going to film a October and then a November book haul, like two separate videos, but I thought I'd just combine them and release it during the end of the year, like content and stuff that everyone's doing. As usual, most of these were bought secondhand at a thrift store, or I found them in like a bargain bin type of situation. Some of these were from Pango books. So, yeah, let's get started. Where should we start? I think we should start with books that I got from subscription services. At the moment, I think I'm only getting books from Illumicrate and The Broken Binding. Starting with Illumicrate, I have The Isle on the Silver Sea by Tasha Suri. This edition, first of all, is beautiful, but I believe in this book we follow a knight and a witch, and they're kind of doomed to fall in love, but then they're also each other's undoing, and they go through this cycle over and over again. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but it's obviously sapphic. I think it takes place in like a fantastical version of England, and I think it's a standalone. I have Tasha Shuri on my shelves behind me. I haven't read her yet, but I mean I hope I enjoy it, obviously. And then the second Illumicrate, I only recently started getting books from this service, but I have A Rather Vengeful Accord by Danielle Knight. This is, I believe, a debut author. I really like how Illumicrate takes more chances on maybe lesser known books that are not getting all the hype and end up in all the other subscription services. But this, I believe, is kind of academic rivals to lovers. And we follow two characters who are trying to get into this like college program where one person is studying to raise the dead, and then the other person is trying to or studies to like kill the dead, like undead beings. I'm not 100% sure. I believe this might be the start of a series. I don't know much about this one. I haven't really heard much either, but I think this is probably one of my favorite covers that I've received since like trying this service. Illumicrate kind of gets a little bit of flack for some of their cover redos, but I think this is one of their better ones that I've received anyways. From The Broken Binding, I got All That We See or Seen by Ken Liu. This is another beautiful book. I believe in this one we follow a character who was some sort of like teenage savant hacker and was known for that for quite a while, but she's grown up now and she wants to leave that life behind. But someone kind of draws her into this big conspiracy where some man's wife has been kidnapped, and the woman who was kidnapped is some sort of tech genius who uses artificial intelligence to like create dreams for people. It brings up a lot of problems for our main character, past and present, and this is supposed to be about the dangers of like AI and stuff like that. I've heard actually mixed things about this one. I haven't read Ken Liu either. I do have the first book in his, I think it's Dandelion. Yeah, the Dandelion Dynasty. I have that on my shelves, and I've been wanting to read that because I feel like 100% sure I'm going to enjoy that series. I do have some nonfiction here, a little stack. I've been trying to read more nonfiction, and it's actually been going well. I'm only reading about one per month. I picked up Night by Elie Wiesel. This is kind of like memoir recollection on this individual the night that he and his family were taken to Auschwitz and then eventually another concentration camp. And it's a lot of thoughts on the evil that he and his family suffered through. It is translated by his wife, I want to say, and she does make a few corrections, I think, in this edition. But this is also one of the books that is in that 1001 books to read before you die, which I'm doing. I don't usually read this type of book, but when it comes to nonfiction, I'm really just going to books that sound intriguing to me. I'm not really focusing on one particular subject, but I saw this, I think at the Goodwill, and so I picked it up. And then I also have Blitz, which is also kind of World War II related. Drugs in the Third Reich by Norman Ohler. I actually bought this at my bookstore full price, which I typically don't do, but it sounded really intriguing to me. This author is going through how much cocaine, methamphetamine use, drug use was used by Hitler and the Third Reich, this whole regime, and maybe even like your average like SS soldier, and how much drugs were a part of different maybe important events for the Nazi party. I don't think he's going to use it as an excuse, but I thought this was interesting, something that I never really heard talked about, so I picked this one up. And then I picked up The Blue Stockings, A History of the First Women's Movement by Susanna Gibson. I got this on Pango. I think it was on the 2024 most notable books from the New York Times, which is where I get some nonfiction recommendations. This follows a group of women, I want to say in England in the 1700s, where they hold these like salon type meetings where they discuss politics and philosophy amongst themselves, amongst with other men, and they also published works. So it's a kind of almost like school setting, like collegiate vibe that they have going for themselves. I would really like to see how the author, if the author even kind of addresses the pitfalls of these women. I'm sure they probably only wanted rights for a certain type of woman, and maybe some of their beliefs don't line up understandably with like my feminist beliefs. The largest section of this haul is going to be sci-fi fantasy, so we'll leave that to the end, but I have a few classics here. I do collect this particular edition, this hardback edition of the Nancy Drew stories. They kind of have different types of covers, but they're pretty much the Grosset and Dunlap editions. I picked up the Double Jinx Mystery. I think this is number 50. And then the Bungalow Mystery. This is number 3, I want to say. But I love that the cover is like printed on the book. And I mean, the art is so cool. I wish we had this type of art nowadays. Don't really need to explain Nancy Drew. I love Nancy Drew. I will pick up anything Nancy Drew related. And then I also picked up Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. This is one of the Penguin classics, very short. I have very little actual like knowledge of the Arthurian like legends and tales. I've read so many like remakes or retellings, reimaginings, and I've watched a few episodes of that Merlin show as well, but I've never actually read anything like official. And then I also picked up Frankenstein, the 1818 text by Mary Shelley, which I haven't read, even though I feel like this is very much up my alley, very much like my vibe. I just haven't picked it up, though I do like Frankenstein inspired stories as well. And I think Penguin Classics always look so like wonderful, like on a shelf together. So I couldn't say no. Then they were both gotten from my Goodwill, so it's not like I'm breaking the bank here. I do have one thriller that I picked up from my Goodwill. This is Long Bright River by Liz Moore. I honestly only was drawn to this because I saw the book of the month fine, and I thought they usually like have okay picks, maybe not the most diverse, but I believe in this book we follow two sisters that have grown apart and they've had very different upbringings, and or they've had very different lives where they are now. One of the sisters, I believe her name is Casey. She is, I think, poor, or she lives on the streets and she struggles with addiction. And then we also follow her other sister. We follow the sister, Mikey or Mickey, and she ends up being a cop, I want to say. And Casey goes missing, and there's also a bunch of bodies piling up that Casey seems to be related to. And so Mickey tries to find her sister and get to the bottom of what's happening. It sounds like an okay premise, but I do really like books about sisters. I really like seeing sister relationships in books. I do have two horror novels that I am really eager to, well, I actually already read one, and that is The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. I got this after I borrowed it from my library. I want to say, yeah, I think I borrowed it from my library. I've been wanting to read this author forever, and when I picked up this one, I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It was almost 5 stars. And so I went straight to Pango and bought it off of somebody. And I can't wait to read the rest of her work. So technically, this is not really even on my TBR. And then I picked up The Vampire Lestat by Anne Rice. First of all, I got this off of, I want to say Thrift Books. And Thrift Books is kind of not the best. When was it Thrift Books or eBay? I think I got this one off of eBay, and I was really kind of not bummed or anything, but the cover that they showed me on eBay was the new paperbacks, the blue ones. So I bought that one because it was the cheapest. But when it arrived, I actually got it in the mass market, like with yellowed pages, because it's so old. And I actually got really excited. I like mass markets. I love a weathered looking book, and I'm really excited to continue on. I read Interview with the Vampire last month, one of the first books that I finished last month. Really enjoyed the writing. The writing was so good. So I can't wait to continue and get more of Lestat, which is, he was 100% way more of an interesting character to read from or read through Louis' eyes. I found the first 2 books in the Chronicles of the Bitch Queen series by K.S. Villoso. I got The Wolf of Oroñaro, Ikisar Falcon. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but these 2 books I remember hearing about when they were coming out a few years ago, and they seemed so interesting to me. And I never picked them up because I don't know. I just never did. And I found them at my Goodwill, which is shocking since my Goodwill usually has mostly like really popular releases once the hype's kind of died down. And not to say this one wasn't well liked, it just wasn't like the most popular thing when they were coming out. I don't know the details. It seems to be like politically heavy, but we follow a woman who kind of has to try to unite a kingdom. She's a queen, and there's a lot of political drama with like the person that she married and just remarry, and it seems like a lot of drama politically, which are those books are usually really hard to summarize. I hope I really enjoy these. I think next year I'm really going to dedicate myself to reading just more fantasy. This year I was really focused on reading different genres, which I was great for my reading and great for my like reading taste. But I do just miss just straight reading like high fantasy. So hopefully I get to these next year. I think this is the one sci-fi. I picked up Children of Memory by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I want to say this is the third book in the this series. I forgot what the series is called, but it's the one with the spiders, like the spider planet, which I haven't started. So you might be asking like why pick up book three. I don't know. I saw it and it was like less than $2. So that's why I picked it up. Another series that I hopefully get to. I know this is not high fantasy, but sci-fi is one of the genres that I never feel like super well read. Though I have read a lot of sci-fi, I just never feel like I'm like up to date as opposed to like fantasy. Like I feel like I understand what I know and what I like about fantasy, not sci-fi. But I've heard great things about Adrian Tchaikovsky. So picked up book three. Do I have book two? No, I don't. I don't. Oops. I do have more books in a series. I have The Broken Heart and The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Carver. I believe these two are follow-ups to the Caraval series, which I did start reading and I did not continue. I will eventually get to that series and finish it before I tackle these two. And I felt like picking these up might motivate me to continue them. I don't even want to look up what the synopsis is just in case I might get spoiled. But I know these are really well liked, and a lot of people actually like these more than the Caraval books. So we'll see about that. I think Caraval is about, if I remember correctly, about this young girl who goes to this like magical, mysterious traveling carnival or circus, and her sister is kidnapped and is part of these like secret games, and she tries to get her sister back, all this whatever. And then I picked up a like hardcover large copy of Game of Thrones by George R. R. Martin. I have, I think, like a small mass market um edition with like the TV show tie-in, but I think this one might be actually better to read, even though I do prefer reading mass markets for like really thick fantasies. It is a little hard on the hands, and my hands are very sensitive. Eventually, I will get to the series. Whenever we get an actual update for the next book, then I feel like, okay, now I can start, since there seems to be like an actual like game plan. Since there hasn't been, I haven't really been motivated to start Game of. Well, actually, I did start Game of Thrones. I did start Game of Thrones in college, and I put it down like halfway because I was really busy with schoolwork, obviously. But eventually, I will get to it because I think it's a world that I would love to explore more. I picked up The Floating World by Axio at my bookstore. I'm actually currently reading an Axio book and I am kind of enjoying it. I do like the writing. There's something very Tamora Pierce-esque about it. This is the first book in a series. The summary doesn't really give me too much to work with, but we're following, I want to say, an individual who has this sort of light magic that is needed for the country, I want to say. And our male main character is tasked, and other people are kind of on the hunt for this female main character who has this light power. It seems like there's some sort of threat or a blight, a poison in this country, and this light power is supposed to help fix it. I honestly picked this up because it's called The Floating World, and if there's one thing that will get me to read a fantasy novel or series, is like floating lands. I don't even know if there's actual floating lands, if that's what it's just like called. I will read anything with that type of setting. It's one of my favorite settings. I know people like are gooped and gagged by a school setting. Floating islands is where it's at for me personally. This is YA. Hopefully I enjoy it. I haven't really been into too much fantastical YA, but since I'm currently like okay with this author as I'm reading her Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, that's what I'm currently reading from Axio. Maybe I'll enjoy this one. If not, it's okay. I'm never like disappointed with like having the opportunity to read, even if it's not a great read. You know what I mean? I picked up Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill. I believe this was self-published or indie published before it was picked up again. I think this was recently picked up by a trad publisher. I could be wrong, or maybe they're getting fancy editions. This sounds like a book that has a lot of like your traditional like fantasy tropes and like good versus evil and dragons. So the summary that I read doesn't really give me too much to work with either, but I believe we have a character who's thrust into some sort of war between like a northern kingdom and like a southern kingdom. That's all I really got, but I've heard that it's really good if you like that type of fantasy. I don't know if this qualifies as like dude bro fantasy, but hopefully I enjoy it. I picked up The Crystal Cave by Mary Stewart. This is an Arthurian. See, they kind of just land on my lap, but this is an Arthurian type of story. We follow a very young Merlin who is the son of, I want to say, a princess, but he doesn't know who his father is, and this is the beginning of his life before he really becomes that helpful aide to Arthur. So it's like a coming of age, but for Merlin. I honestly was drawn to this because of the cover and that very like old school looking fantasy vibe. And I love a mass market. Something really enjoyable about reading older fantasy, especially fantasy published before COVID, when the landscape kind of changed. But hopefully I enjoy this one, and I'm always down to read books by female authors from like I don't want to say way back when, like older fantasy from female authors. I picked up The Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Bullman. I've heard great things about this one as well. This is a fantasy journey story, I want to say. We follow someone who was part of some sort of guild and he learned all these like lock picking type of skills and he kind of owes them a favor. So he's gonna rob someone for the guild, and the person that he ends up trying to rob is some sort of I want to say like a knight, and he kind of gets roped into finding some sort of princess. It's again another one of those stories that or another one of these summaries that don't really quite explain what it is, so I'm assuming it's going to be like war political driven, but I've heard a lot of great things and it says it's the beginning of a journey, so we'll see if I enjoy it. Hopefully I do. Again, I just really want to read some high fantasy moving forward next year. So, and the last book in this haul is The Doll Makers by Lynn Buchanan. This seems like a really fun, interesting concept. I think this might be YA or like middle grade into YA. I'm not 100% sure. This takes place in some sort of country where there are these doll makers, and the people who make these dolls sometimes are used to fight these like monstrous like creatures to like protect the country, protect the people. And we follow a character who really wants their dolls to be used to fight these monsters, but they get told that their dolls are too delicate to fight. I don't know if they become more ornamentation or they're used for different purposes, but they're very disappointed by that when they get tested for their dolls or whatever. I think this is the first in the series. I just like, I don't know, crafts, people who are into like crafts or craftsmen. I think I saw one review about this. I think it was Thoughts on Tomes who talked about it and they liked it. I don't think they gave it glowing reviews, but I was really interested just based off of their review. So I picked it up at like an Amazon return bin type of store. So that is everything that I've hauled within the last 2 months. I think I have some great picks here, some classics, some books I've actually already read, some nonfiction, fantasy, a lot of fantasy as per usual. But let me know what you thought about the books that I picked up. Have you read them before? Have you had them on your radar, have not had them on your radar, but I introduce you to them? I'd like to hear anything you have to say in the comments down below. I will also link my social medias down below as well as some far more important links. Feel free to like, dislike, comment, or subscribe, or do neither. It's all cool with me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Happy holidays. Peace. I don't know how I'm gonna take thumbnail. We'll see.